part of the Another Realm Media Network. Welcome to this episode of Mysterial Experiences, where we delve into the heart of mystery and the ethereal. Today we invite you on a voyage through shadowed realms of the unexplained. From spectral whispers to cosmic enigmas. Join us as we explore tales and phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, in a quest to uncover truths hidden in the fabric of the extraordinary. Prepare for a journey into the unknown, where each revelation is a step closer to unraveling the mysterious. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Mysterial Experiences. As always, I'm your host, Josh Rutledge. We've got with us today Stacey Wright, who is the director of Arizona MUFON as well as Phoenix MUFON. Been involved with MUFON for about 15 years, and for state director going on 4 years. So welcome, Stacey.
Thank you.
So I met Stacey because I joined the MUFON from Kentucky. And when I moved out here to Arizona and I started going to the Arizona meetings, there was Stacey. And so, although I don't know that we know each other extremely well, I think we have an idea that at least we're both interested in the phenomena and all that it entails. And so, if you wanted to maybe take just a few minutes and let the listeners know anything specific that they need to know about you that I didn't cover.
Okay. Well, as Josh said, I'm the state director for all things MUFON in Arizona. And I also run the Phoenix MUFON chapter, which is, I might say, the most successful chapter that MUFON has right now. We're very proud of that. So that's been really fun. Phoenix MUFON brings in the really high caliber speakers each and every month, and we bring them in from all over the world. And we have a great venue that we're able to have our meetings in. It's the Arizona Historical Society Museum, beautiful state-funded place that just loves us too. Actually, they asked us to be there, which is really funny. I didn't even know this big giant building existed. They had come to one of our meetings when we were at another location, and they heard that we were looking for a new location. So they asked us if we would like to come to their beautiful place, and they have a big auditorium there, which seats 275. So of course we said, well, yeah, that sounds great. We'll be there. So we've been there since about 2014, I think. And it's just a beautiful place, and we love it there, and our speakers love it there. It's just very professional and beautiful. So we're really happy to be doing meetings each month.
And it's very centralized, as far as no matter where in the valley you're coming from or outside of the valley. I think I've met some people that come from either outside of Arizona to come to Phoenix MUFON meetings. So it's very cool. And I can attest, the Kentucky MUFON is almost non-existent. So it was a welcome surprise to come out and see just really how involved the Phoenix MUFON is. And it's, every like you said, you'll pull in the guest speakers in almost every session that is had. There's a good turnout, and there's always good conversation, and it's just all around. It's a really great experience. So I'm pleased that you all have done a good job of maintaining that. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. We have a lot of fun doing it. It's got to remain fun and interesting, and we try to bring in a little bit more than just the UFO topic, because I personally believe that it's all interrelated. MUFON, has some rules where they want to keep out the paranormal. They're still working on that a little bit, with a little pushback from a lot of the state directors and the members, because a lot of us believe that it is all related. But to stay within the boundaries of what MUFON sets forth, we try to keep it UFO-y. A lot of subjects out there that I'm really interested in, like Bigfoot and some things like that. So I want to have these speakers in, and we do, but I ask them to somehow tie that in to the UFO subject. And so they do, and it works out beautifully. So we can hear that message. And, we sometimes bring in some controversial subjects that a lot of people don't agree on. But what better way to start research and dialogue than to open up that
Right.
can of worms?
Right.
And I'm not
Exactly.
scared of doing that. So we have people in where, they give their lecture up there for 2 hours, and then we have some really good Q&A at the end. But that, involves people so much that they can go home and do their own research on
Mhm.
stuff. We don't want them just to take anyone's word on anything, but please go home and look at stuff and read and do some research of your own, so we're all a little, more intelligent.
And I would say that that advice holds true, even if you're just sitting on your couch watching 8 documentaries, right?
Right.
The so-called experts that are in those documentaries, you can't be an expert of something that can't be defined. So even if you hear a Nick Pope who has been around in this community for a long time talk about his theory about something or whatever, research that theory. Think about,
Right.
do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Why would you disagree with it? Form your own opinions,
Yeah.
regardless if you're coming to a MUFON meeting or you're just sitting on your couch doing your own investigation. So,
Right.
um, well, thank you for that, Stacey. So I'm curious, have you, because I have met, there's a mixed group, I think, of MUFON members, those who have had their own personal experiences and those who want to have their own personal experiences but have not yet. Which group do you fall into?
Well, I, have gone through a little bit of hypnotherapy and regression to try to find out if I have had some experiences, because I do not consciously recall them. But I
Mhm.
keep thinking, well, why such an insane interest and passion in this
Mhm.
subject if I have not been an experiencer? But I have found out nothing so far.
Mhm.
The two people that I had hypnotize me were very well-known people that everyone's probably heard of, and they both said at different times, Stacey, you've got some kind of a block in there,
Mhm.
and we think that maybe it was put there for a purpose. So let's just leave that alone for
Yep.
now. Maybe we can revisit it later, but right now is just not the time. So I haven't been able to find that out. I've had a couple, 2 or 3 UFO sightings, and I've had an experience doing a CE5 protocol a couple of times. Other than that, I haven't, I wouldn't go around calling myself a big experiencer at all.
Okay.
No, I'm just a very interested individual.
I mean, excuse me. I tend to think that any encounter with the phenomena makes you an experiencer, whether it's just seeing it, hearing it, having a dream about it.
Yeah,
It's the
you could
point
to
that,
a small degree.
right,
Yeah.
there's differing degrees, just like Hynek's classification for CE1, or through his only went to CE4, I think, but his classification system was for the level of contact. I think the same could be said for the level of experience. And so,
Good.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I fully understand the idea of you have such a passion, let's say, for the topic and related topics, that it would stand the reason that you have had something, or at least perhaps that you, on a life purpose level, let's say, have some role to play, let's say, in the helping others figure out their situation. And so maybe that drive to be a part of the community led you to be state director. And I know that there's the ERT, the experiential resource team. So there's other ways that MUFON helps people other than just submitting a report and doing an investigation. And maybe the skills that you bring as a state director help you help others without necessarily being a direct experiencer yourself.
I hope it does. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
MUFON's got a lot of, different avenues. I mean, it's a worldwide organization, and they do a lot of really good work out there, and they really want to do a lot of good work. As you had mentioned, the experiencer resource team that MUFON has, this is a group of people that are counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers. They are qualified to talk with the people that have had experiences, and just, these people have just had their world rocked.
mhm.
They don't know if they're insane. They don't know if this is a normal thing. They don't know how to handle it. They just sometimes just need to talk to someone, find out, if someone else has had similar experiences. So the experiencer resource team really helps these people a lot. And I think it's just a great group that we have set aside. And I think that you, Josh, might be interested in doing that too. Didn't you mention that?
I am. Yep.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I am. I know that the ERT team is pulled from the field investigator group, and so I'm working my way into becoming a field investigator so that I can work towards that ultimate goal is being a part of ERT. And I'm actually going back to school for psychology so that
Oh, great.
that'll aid me in that regard as well. So, yeah, I mean,
Oh,
though so much of this podcast is really my way of serving in kind of like an ERT function where every week there's a new guest that gets to not only share their experiences that they've had to let other people know that they're not alone. I think there was a study that was done by John Mack and somebody else, I can't remember, but they estimated that somewhere around 1 million people at that time had a UFO experience one way or the other, just based on some of the data they had collected from people voluntarily giving their reports. They were able to kind of extrapolate that out and I honestly think that number is probably significantly higher.
I think
Um,
so too.
but
Yeah.
most people there's still a heavy taboo on the topic for whatever purpose. And I think most people, because of that taboo, are fearful of coming forward and talking about it.
They are. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, not daily, but I mean, my full-time job that I have right now is in a situation where I can't just be out there and be talking about this stuff all the time. But when I do talk to people, and they say, "Oh no, UFOs? Oh no, I don't know anything about that. That's
Mhm.
I say, but I bet you know someone who has had
Mhm.
some kind of an experience. And they're like, well, yeah. So even though people haven't had an experience, they know
Right.
someone that has. So it has really become very mainstream. And it's really okay to talk about it now. I think people are becoming a little more,
Right.
easy to talk to. And it's not, yes, like you said, such a taboo subject because it has become mainstream with everything we've seen in the news lately,
Right.
the disclosures that we've had from the Pentagon, from the Navy, from some of these fighter pilots and people in the congressional hearings. I mean, this stuff is really going far right now. And every once in a while, will come across someone that's like, wait, what? What's that all about? And I just want to ask them, do you watch TV at all? Um, one person that I work with a couple of days ago, I was showing her some stuff about Area 51. And she goes, wait, what's Area 51? And I just looked at her and I said, did you just ask me what Area 51 was? She says, yeah, what is that? I don't know what that is. And I was just really kind of
Right.
flabbergasted because it's so mainstream out there now. There's been so many TV shows and movies and documentaries and fun made of it everywhere that I was just really surprised to find someone that has
Mhm.
never heard of Area 51. So that to me is an anomaly. Yeah. Or
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
spooky.
we will, I think, get to the point where, um, instead of the anomaly being people who have had experiences, it'll be the people who have not.
It might be. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so nice too to be able to watch a news station story on the topic and not have them play the X-Files theme. So
Right. There's still a little bit of that, though.
a
I
little
mean,
bit, yeah.
there's a
There's
little bit of
still,
that,
you
which is
see it in their
so
faces, and yeah.
counterproductive. It's ABC News Nightline, just came in and filmed our annual field investigator boot camp that we put on every November here in Mesa, Arizona. And so it just aired on Hulu about 10 days ago. So, we're all excited to see that and see how the boot camp went on there. And they did a pretty good piece on the boot camp, but immediately following it, they went into this brothel that is in Area
Yeah.
51 and completely took all the good
Yeah.
stuff away. I mean, the professionalism just flew right out the window. And I wrote to them and said, guys, what are you
Yeah.
doing here? Really, I thought you were a hard-hitting news agency, and let's do your job, But when they put that right up next to something as scientific and as important as a fieldwork forensic boot camp,
Right.
yeah, it just took it right out the window. So it is very disappointing when that happens.
Yeah, I actually did not like that documentary in its entirety.
Yeah.
It seemed like every time they would interview an experiencer, they would then cut to a scientist talking about how they're probably just seeing things or whatever. So
Right.
it seemed it seemed rather detracting from, I think, what we all had hoped it was going to be. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it did. But
and that's unfortunate. I mean, but there are people who I think do have a they don't like the phenomena. They don't agree with the phenomena. They're uber skeptics. They're non-believers. Whatever the phrase is that you want to use. And so, just like there are the Nick Popes of the world who are trying to spread the message, there are people of the world who will try to deny and spread the opposite of the message. And so,
right. Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you had mentioned that you're interested in Bigfoot. Is there any other aspects of? And by the way, that's what the name of the show, Mysterial. I didn't feel like there was a good word that encompassed everything, and so
Uh-huh.
I created one. But that's what it was intended to be. Is like it's UFO, Bigfoot, ghost, ESP, out of body experiences, Nord near thing. Because
Yeah.
I do think it's all related somehow.
Oh, it is. And I love that word mysterial. I think that, everyone kind of, maybe people have not heard that word before, but they know what it means immediately.
Yeah.
So it describes it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned Bigfoot. Have you ever had a Bigfoot sighting or
I have not.
sounding or anything?
Um, I thought I did once. I lived up in the wilds of Idaho for a while, and during college, my boyfriend and I, his family owned a lumber company. So we would go up into the wilds of nowhere in the middle
Mm.
of, the panhandle of Idaho. And we would work all summer long, working for the Burlington Northern, actually, making giant slash piles of the trees after they go in there and log,
Mm-hmm.
go in there and clean all that up. So we would see no one all summer long, no human beings up there at all. It was crazy, and it was some hard camping. And I was very interested in Bigfoot even back then, had never really studied it, but always thought, it was just very interesting to me. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was constantly on the lookout and listening to stuff, and you hear a lot of stuff out there at night in the forest when you're there by yourself.
Oh
So
yeah.
of course your imagination goes wild. So no, I never really saw Bigfoot. I heard a lot of weird things up there, but never really anything that it was concrete enough.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a very interesting subject to me. And I think that I truly believe that Bigfoot, Sasquatch must be an interdimensional creature.
Yeah. I come
There
down
are
on the same side of
animals
that.
all over this planet that we have found traces of.
Right.
We've found their bones, we found their skeleton, their skulls, their hair, their den. We have not seen anything like this from Bigfoot. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I
Mm.
mean, we've got witness testimony going back to caveman days of this creature. So I think that when you get that much witness testimony, that's evidence,
Yeah.
not proof, but evidence.
Evidence.
So
At
when we
least.
have this much stuff going on, and oh, so where does it go? How come we haven't killed one? How come we haven't found
Right.
one's bones or one's den? Well, I think they have the capacity to slip in and out of dimensions whenever they need to. Therefore, they don't get captured, they don't get shot. Um, I think that's the best,
And I
you
and
know.
I think that
You
where
know what
there
I mean?
are,
I mean, we just can't
yeah,
get any further than
yeah.
that, but one day we will.
I think that also, like, where there are concentrations of Bigfoot sightings, because unlike UFOs, Bigfoot sighting concentrations tend to be in less populated areas, right? Like when you look at, I've
They're
taken,
not really in the city. No,
right,
they're in the
right.
rural areas, and yeah.
Like a couple of years ago, I went and downloaded a large data file from Newfork that
Huh.
had geolocation for all these, UFO sightings, and I threw it into Google Maps, or Google Earth. And I was hoping I could glean information about, are there certain areas that UFO appear more or whatever the case may be. But really what I saw was that most sightings occur in heavily populated areas. And that makes sense because there's more opportunity for somebody to be standing outside looking up at the sky and seeing something. But when it's Bigfoot, it's a different scenario, right? Because they are typically in less populated areas. They're out in the woods or even in the desert. I found some Bigfoot sightings that have happened here in Arizona.
That's
Um,
crazy. You think forest, you think deep, dark
right,
forest, but no, there is sightings in the Florida Everglades. There's sightings
right.
here, the more barren parts of Arizona. It is kind of crazy, but
And so,
yeah,
you think about the fact that because they happen in such less populated areas or in areas where people have to be purposefully going there to camp or to fish or hunt, whatever, um, really makes you wonder if, from that interdimensional slippage, if there's like a portal perhaps nearby.
yeah.
And there has been discussion, I know, in Arizona, Sedona is considered to be a portal spot. I've
Mhm.
also heard the Mojave Desert in California as a potential portal spot, but I think that's an area worth exploring too. Is even UFO. Maybe UFO are constantly flying around all the time, and they happen to pass through a portal that makes them visible for some period of time, and then they pass through another one, and they're no longer visible. And so,
Could
um,
be.
trying to look for some sort of a nexus point where these things intersect would be interesting to study as well.
And we're going to discuss that a little bit more. Our upcoming Phoenix MUFON meeting is going to be David Paulides as our guest speaker on February 10th. And as a lot of people know, if they've followed his work, he started out with the Bigfoot subject. So it was the North American Bigfoot Association that he founded. And then he went into writing all of his books on the missing 411
Mm,
and all of the mysterious disappearances of people within the national parks and other places as well. Really super interesting subject.
it
He's
is.
coming back here on February 10th, and he's going to be talking about Bigfoot and the UFO/portal
Mm,
connection.
interesting.
So yeah, we're going to pick his brain on that one. If he doesn't, give us all the good stuff that we want to
Yeah.
hear, the
There's
killer
always lunch afterwards, right?
really good because there's a lot of people that believe that that there's a lot of portals that exist not just in those high frequency places but
Mhm.
places that you can't see it so you don't really know until
Right.
something happens. um I think there's a portal in the floor of my office at work because we have a weight loss challenge that goes on there, and so we have the scales sitting right there, and that's where people come and weigh, and they weigh on that, and they're like, "That's not true." And so we move it over about 6 feet, and they weigh completely different. And I say, "Well,
Wow.
you're in the portal," and so now they're starting to believe it. But I think that portals do exist, and I think it is just simply a wormhole of sorts that things can pass through, come from places like people say, oh well, UFOs couldn't possibly be coming from another world. It's just too far away. They could never get here. They
Mhm.
would just never get here. Well, yeah, they can, and science has shown us
Right.
that through quantum theory and wormholes, yeah, they can come right on through. So if UFOs can fly through from somewhere else, I'm sure that other things can come through as
Yep.
well. Anyone that's looked into the Skinwalker Ranch phenomena, um, they've pretty much seen portals open up there in the sky
Right.
throughout the. So it's a pretty interesting subject.
Yeah, the Skinwalker Ranch, I think it's season 4, which is the most recent one that was out. They actually caught an orb to go through the top of the mesa and come out the side, which was just
Yeah,
an amazing catch.
it
Just an amazing catch.
yeah,
I was talking to somebody last night about the idea that we know because we've seen some footage of UFOs and things flying just lightning fast through the skies, and we just happen to snap the picture at the right time, and we see this thing in one frame or whatever in the 30 frames per second or whatever we were taking of that video. Live pictures, I think, are, if you have the live setting within Apple, I don't think Android has that, but to be able where it takes like a little live snapshot, those are also because they're little videos. And so you capture a lot of frames.
yeah,
But for the most part, these things are just zipping around all over the place. So they slow down on purpose, right? They slow down because they want to be seen, they want to interact in
yeah,
some way. And so it really makes you wonder if we are also a major component, humans are a major component in the UFO phenomena, because there does seem to be some sort of a purpose decision, if you will, to interact with us. I've never heard of anybody who was abducted, and when they were recalling aspects of the craft that they were on, saw a room with a dog on a table, or a dolphin, or an octopus. So it doesn't appear that, unless they're doing it in another part of the ship, it doesn't appear that they're abducting anyone other than us. So there's seems to be some sort of a conscious decision for humans to be a part of
Yeah.
the phenomenon.
And that will lead a lot of people into the time travel issue, that they may be us from the future coming back to, I don't know, try to help or try to change something or whatever. But Dr. Michael Masters has a really good lecture on this subject, and you sit there and you scratch your head a little bit and you're like, dang, that's deep.
Yeah.
But it's possible. Anything's possible. So yeah, it could be us from the future.
I think it's also the hard part we have to try to avoid, because we as humans want to try to put things into buckets, and we want to try to compartmentalize and say that it's all this or it's all that. And the fun thing is that it doesn't have to be all anything. All right.
Yeah.
It could be a mixture, a conclave of a whole bunch of different things. And the important part, I think, as researchers that are interested in researching the topic, is that we don't fall into the trap of assuming it's all one thing. So I love Dr. Masters' presentation. I got to see it in Phoenix MUFON a couple months ago. But I also think that because he's concluded that it's all time travel, anything that doesn't fit that narrative, he excludes from his research.
Yeah.
And so there's a danger in doing that. And that's true. I'm not trying to call him out specifically, but that's true of
common.
anybody who's doing research.
That's common with all the speakers that we've listened to. Everyone's got their own take on it.
Right. So I mean, if it's all included, right? If we say the mysterial is everything, and it's all somehow linked and related, then it logically has to have more than one explanation.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we're just so limited as to what we can comprehend, what we can see, just with our vision. There's things right next to us, all the time, that certain people have gifts, real gifts for seeing and understanding, but, the majority of us don't. But there's a lot of stuff out there that is, I think, completely related. I think anything behind that veil, as they call it, which is, any extrasensory perceptions, even death, there's just ghosts, everything behind that veil has got to be related. It's just got to be. And one day maybe we have to die to find that out. But we'll know the answers one day.
We will. And then we might come back and share everybody else with those answers.
We might, yes.
So there was a speaker at Phoenix MUFON, I think it was last week, where she spoke a lot about near-death experience and the relationship that it may have with UFO abductions, I think is where she was tying it. But, I've often wondered if the UFO abduction is always physical, or if it's sometimes the taking of the astral body and not necessarily the physical body. Which that would then have a tie potentially to NDEs, and that NDEs are a removal of the astral body and the physical body. So, but anyways, it's possible. Anything's possible. So other than UFOs, Bigfoot, any other interest? I think you mentioned you had a ghost experience, something.
No, not a ghost, but just some experience with the CE5 protocol.
CE5, that's
we
what
did. I was part of a working group that Stephen Greer had put together for the Phoenix area about maybe 12, 13 years ago. And so we had gone out, and there was just maybe 5 or 6 of us had gone out into the desert here outside of Phoenix and did some really good deep meditations. And we were meditating to the tones that were recorded within crop circles. So we would go into this really good deep meditation for, say, half an hour, 45 minutes. And people had similar experiences. Everyone would talk about what they saw or what they felt during this time. And so there was a lot of similarities that was just really kind of striking. But one time when we did this, we all came out of this and we opened our eyes and we were surrounded by little tiny twinkling white, like fairy lights going off and on everywhere. I mean, over the whole hillside, the sagebrush next to us, the road. It was crazy. And I kept thinking, oh, it's because my eyes were shut for so long. It's just but no, everyone was having the same thing. And it lasted about 15 or 20 minutes before it slowly just faded away. And as it faded away, it took away all of our electronic devices. Our cell phones all went dead. And we would go out with, we were prepared. We had brand new batteries and everything. We were just really prepared. We had a really nice Marantz recorder there with us, brand new batteries, everything in that. It did not record anything. Our phones all went dead, and they were burning hot to the touch, just burning hot. You couldn't hold them. They were that bad. And I kept thinking, oh, these people, man, this must be mass hysteria. All of our stuff went dead. They think that's part of this. I was kind of a skeptic at this point, because you have to have a healthy sense of skepticism anyway to address some of this stuff. So as I'm going back to my vehicle to get my phone and see if anything anomalous was happening to it, I saw it on, and I mean, we're so far out there's no cell service, okay? I could see the inside of my purse completely lit up by my cell phone on. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. And I went in there and I reached in there and grabbed it, and it was so hot to the touch, I had to let go of it. And I got something, a piece of shirt or something, and lifted it up and looked at it. And immediately as I looked at it, it went dead.
Wow.
So we were all a little, concerned that maybe our car batteries had gone dead too.
Yeah.
But no, they were still working. And one of the strangest things is as we were driving back into town, and it was about an hour's drive outside of town, as we were driving back in, everyone's cell phone came on back to life, just as if nothing had happened to it at all. Now that doesn't happen. No. I was a liaison for Verizon Wireless at the time through my office. And so I went in and talked to them about this, and they said, that would never happen. I said, well, it did. And they're like, no, something must have been wrong. And I said, with 6 cell phones all at the same time? They're like, no, that would never happen either. So it was really an unknown weirdness that happened out there. But I think that, we were trying to make contact. And so what these beings or whatever this was, this presence that we had out there, made contact with our communication devices.
Right.
And it was just really cool. I mean, the little sparky lights were the coolest thing ever. I had just never seen anything like that before. And we went out about a week later to duplicate that again. And we did see the sparky lights again, but not as bright, not as long duration as what we had that first time. So that was just really cool. I mean, we never saw the mothership coming down with the CE5 protocols or anything like that.
Right.
But I think that what we had there was some kind of contact. There was an energy signature there that was trying to relate to us a little bit and gave us this beautiful show. So that was really cool. That was a great memory.
Yeah, that is it is fascinating in that your like you said, your phone batteries and things were drained, your communication equipment, but not the batteries in your cars.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was like it was trying to communicate, but the equipment just couldn't handle the load or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
The twinkling light things, I'll say. So when I first moved here, like within the first week, or maybe, well, actually, it was a couple months after I moved here, we had gotten a dog, and I wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay in the backyard by herself. So for the first probably couple weeks, I would walk her on a leash in our backyard to go to the bathroom. And so she got up one night and needed to go. And so I took her out, and I was standing, I've got like a patch of grass, which I love because I can actually connect my feet to the earth sometimes. But, and that's where she was kind of walking there. And I saw that same kind of twinkling light effect down close to the ground. And at first I thought it might have been a street light reflecting off my pool. And
Right.
so I did try to move around to where I could see the street light in my pool, but that was in a completely different location from where I saw the light. So I stepped back to where I was and it twinkled again. And then I've never had that experience since. And I at the time I called that a fairy sighting. That's what I
Yeah.
attributed it to. And so I came back inside, went back to bed, and when I went back to bed, I had the most amazing dream of like a fairy in my room, talking to me about the secrets of the universe. It was just the most amazing dream I've ever had. So,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, I'm also curious, when you've done these, I'm gonna call them conscious contact because I think there's a connotation that comes along with CE5, people who
Yeah.
don't necessarily like or trust Dr. Greer,
Right.
whichever your opinion. But whenever you've done a conscious contact situation, have you ever had after effects, dreams, visions, anything the next day or after the point?
I don't think I have. I mean, I've heard of a lot of people that have, but I personally don't recall anything like that, coming into play. Um, yeah, I don't think I have.
Don't think so? Okay. Just curious, because there just seems to be a good mixture of people, some that do and some that don't.
Yeah.
Have you ever had or experienced anything from I know that I've talked to people who have been a part of a conscious contact and have had a healing afterwards, or any of those types of experiences.
I hear people talk about stuff like that all the time. I can't think of anything that can really be proven, but yeah, it hits everyone in a different way.
Yeah,
It really, I think it touches your soul is what it does.
very
So
much so. Very much so.
it's fun. We've had Phoenix MUFON go out and do sky watches after our big meetings every month, um, weather permitting. We would
Hmm.
go out to the desert and just try some experiments out there. So we'd have someone that was really good at leading a meditation
Hmm.
for the group there, and then we would have a ghost hunter group out there with all of their equipment set up around the perimeter of us, so we have things to measure anything
Hmm.
that might come along. And then we have a remote viewing group that would sit in downtown Phoenix and they would remote view us trying to make contact out there.
Hmm.
So it's a form of triangulation just to
Right.
try to get something. And if we did, then we've got, a method to measure it. So we haven't had any great luck with that, but we still keep trying. We do
Yeah.
that a couple times a year just to see what happens, because people are very interested in this. We get a lot of people out there with us to, join us, and it's just a lot of fun. And people make really great friends out there and
Yeah.
exchange, experiences and stuff too. So I know things like this do happen to a lot of people, and I'm glad it does. I think it really just opens up their mind.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think at the end of the day, we are a connected people. Like we need interactions with each
Right.
other. And so any opportunity that exists where we can, you know, further those interactions
Hmm.
is always a plus and a benefit,
Yeah.
especially in a community that has been ostracized for so long. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It kind of does bring us all together for sure. Yeah.
it does. So, is there anything that I'll say it this way: has there been an experience that you would like to have, but you just haven't been in the right place, right time to be able to have one?
Um, yeah, I want to see this giant boomerang shaped craft flow right over my head and block
Yeah.
out the stars. I mean, we hear so much here in this area about the Phoenix Lights, and we're still gathering information on that. We probably have maybe one person a month that writes into me and says, "Hey, I saw that, and I
Hmm.
feel like now I'm ready to tell you about it. I wasn't earlier, I could not talk about it, but I'm ready now." So they'll send in some of their notes to us, and we keep track of all that. But as
Yeah.
I'm reading through this stuff, I'm thinking, how cool would that be to be just looking up at the
Yeah.
stars, the sky full of stars, and see this giant black V-shaped craft fly over and block out the
Block
stars? I
out
mean,
the stars.
that's what
Yeah.
I want to experience. I think that would be the coolest thing ever.
And it was like I think it was described as being about a mile in width. And so, I mean
Yeah, it
that's a
was massive. Yeah,
humongous
just a
craft.
massive craft.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think that, I've people have looked at this subject many times and cannot come up with anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that it's a true unknown, it's a true UFO. Back in 97, when it happened, I'm not sure if we had the technology to have anything that big
Mm.
fly
Yeah.
that low and that slow and with absolutely zero sound. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
that's the thing that gets me is the sound, because everything we make as humans, propulsion is
right.
loud,
Right.
loud, really loud. And this thing was very low and it was super slow, almost like it was hovering, but it was still moving. And I'm just not sure in 97 that we had the technology for that. We might today, but I don't
I mean,
think we did back then. And
even if it was a glider, which there are some really wide winged gliders, but not anything that meets the
not
mile
that big.
long.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of any glider pilot flying for that distance at night.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I and unfortunately, I think there was a lot of antics that happened during that time again because of the taboo of the topic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to necessarily drudge all that up, but
A lot of eye rolling. Yeah.
yeah,
But
but
it is pretty cool. I mean, I think
yeah,
it's still to date, I think the largest mass sighting
yeah,
anywhere.
and
This many people.
and that's what I say. I mean, and that's why really it feels like there's a us component to it because it did fly low and slow on a night where people would be looking up to see the
Hmm.
comet, right?
Right.
And so, like, it really feels purposeful in its actions.
Yeah, it
Um,
does. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that was they picked that night. The military must have picked that night. It was something that flew out of Area 51 because it
mm,
did come from that corner of the
right,
state and went all the way across our state and across the border into Mexico." So people are saying, "Oh, well, what's up there? Area 51 is up there. They were just trying something, flying across the state." But if it's something that's that top secret, what are they doing flying it around over the top of a major metropolitan city
right,
for everyone to see?
for
That
thousands of
doesn't make
people
any
to see.
sense.
Yeah,
And then there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, then it was a craft that was housed up there at Area 51 and what? It got loose. I mean,
right,
it got loose and
yeah,
decided to follow the freeway all across the state. That
yeah,
doesn't really make any sense either. So, I think that it did want to be seen. It did kind of parade itself a little bit.
yeah,
Um, and maybe, that's for a very good reason. For maybe that because we're talking about it right here today.
yeah, exactly.
It's raised the consciousness, and has slowly given people a little idea of what might be out there, and
Yeah,
everything builds on top of that. So yeah, I think it was definitely meant to be. Wasn't something that just got loose.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting. I've had a long-standing theory that that water is somehow related to the phenomena in some way. Like there's, I've watched the Life of Water, the documentary that talks about
Uh-huh.
how water reacts to different, stimulant. And if you're happy, the snowflake is pretty, and if you're sad and yelling at water when it makes a snowflake, it's deformed. And so, you've got all these now the USOs and everything that are being reported by the Navy.
Right.
And so the fact that that craft in 97 came from the area of Lake Mead, really makes you wonder if, water is somehow at play with how they can materialize or even come into our dimension.
It could be. And I've often wondered and thought that maybe, these craft aren't coming from outer space. They're coming from under our oceans.
Hmm.
I mean, we know more about the surface of Mars right now than we
Right.
know about our deep abysses in our oceans. We're
Yep.
just now starting to find out about this. Well, that could be where they've been hanging out
Right.
for millennia,
Well, and they could have been, yeah, for a lot, even back during the time of the dinosaurs, because they could have easily, hid out in the oceans and avoided all the cataclysm that would have happened from the, asteroid hitting the Earth and everything else.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, I'm also I'm a big proponent for inner Earth as well. That there could be large cavities
Right.
beneath the surface of the Earth that house vast cities. And I've got
Right.
my
So
poster
these,
back here is the Shaver Mystery from
there
Amazing
you go.
Stories, you
Yeah.
know. So, um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
it doesn't mean that they're from outer space, like all of our
right,
cartoons and shows
right.
have showed us over the years, but they could be absolutely a co-indigenous species here, along with, Homo
Yep.
sapiens sapiens,
You know,
easily.
there's a conspiracy or a theory that says that um, Gene Roddenberry was a part of what was called the Council of Nine, tasked with slowly introducing humanity to the concepts of the Galactic Federation and other species out there in the universe and so on and so forth. And so I find it really interesting that in a lot of this, not necessarily Star Trek the original series, but in some of the later series, excuse me, especially in Next Generation, there is a lot of planets that are encountered where there are two intelligent species living on the planet. Some are aware of the others, and some are not. And
Hmm.
so, if there really is an intent behind Star Trek to do that kind of introduction of these concepts, maybe there is another intelligent species
Yeah,
that has
that's
evolved on
true.
this planet alongside us.
A lot of people have wondered about Roddenberry. He just had a little bit too much information for way
Yeah.
back then and introduced us all to that. So yeah, that could very well be.
So. Well, Stacey, I want to be mindful of time. I know we've been on for about 50 minutes or so.
Okay, well, it's been a
And
lot of fun. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for coming on. Is there anything you would like to plug? Any speaking appearances or podcasts or books or anything that you would like to let everybody know about?
Well,
Or
if people are interested in coming to our Phoenix MUFON meetings, they are open to the public. And you can find out all our list of speakers and those dates just by going to phoenixmufon.com. And if you're interested in being a field investigator, we can certainly talk to you about that as well. We're always welcoming people to our team of field investigators, and it's a lot of fun as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's it. So
Okay.
Josh, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It was very nice talking with you.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody else, if you have had an experience or if you want to come on the show and talk about your experience, or even if you just want me to read it on air, you can email me at joshrutledge@mysterialexperiences.com. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Bye.